Studying objects is a great way for us to find out about other cultures. When we're thinking about the ancient Greeks, their pottery can tell us so much about what they were interested in. Their pots or vases were used for storage, transporting things, and for eating and drinking out of. The pictures that they decorated their vases with show us scenes from everyday life and from their imagination, the gods and heroes who filled their stories. We're going to find out more about one of the most popular heroes in ancient Greece, Heracles. Heracles is still a well-known hero. Perhaps you've heard of him before. Sometimes he's known as Hercules, because that's what the ancient Romans called him. They liked him too. In India, he was known as Vajrapani. Perhaps you've heard of him under that name. He was the son of the king of the gods, Zeus, and of a human woman called Alcmene. His great-grandmother was a princess of Ethiopia called Andromeda. The stories say that the gods ordered Heracles to carry out 12 near impossible tasks, or labours. A horrible king, Eurystheus of Argos, chose the labours for him to do. Many of them involved killing terrifying monsters or capturing ferocious wild animals. Nowadays, it's important that we look after wild animals, but long ago, when there were more of them and fewer of us, they could make life hard for farmers who were just trying to grow enough to eat. So it was very helpful for them to have a hero come along. Once Heracles had defeated the terrible Hydra monster, he returned with some of its heads to show the king. King Eurystheus set him the next challenge: to capture a huge boar that had been terrorizing people, the Erymanthian boar. A boar is a kind of big wild pig. They are very fast and strong, and they have pointed tusks to defend themselves with, which can be very dangerous. The hero Odysseus had a long scar on his leg from being gored by a boar when he was young. The boar Heracles had to find was called the Erymanthian boar because it lived around Erymanthia in the Peloponnese. Because it was dangerous to fight a boar, ancient hunters would set up nets and then chase the boar into the net. Heracles chased the boar for a very long way. Finally, he captured it and took it back to the king. Not that the king was pleased to see him. He was so frightened of the boar that he wanted to hide, so he jumped in a big storage vase buried in the ground. Heracles was one step closer to completing the 12 labours. That moment, the king hiding in the vase, that was the moment of the story that the ancient vase maker chose to decorate his pot with. Some other vase makers put the same moment on their vases too, so it must have been one that people recognised and liked. In the centre of the scene, we can see Heracles, Eurystheus, and the boar. Heracles is nude, because the ancient Greeks thought that looked very heroic. He has a bow with him, and a quiver that he keeps his arrows in. Round his chest, he has a sword on a strap. Eurystheus has been shown in the animation wearing a long gown of the sort that we can see in some other pots. A gown like that would have been very expensive to have made, and you couldn't do hard physical work in it, like farming or mining. So having him wearing that gown is a way of showing that he's high up in society, a king, although it isn't as heroic as being nude like Heracles. On the far left, we have the god Hermes, the messenger god. We can tell it's him because of his traveller's hat and cloak, his special messenger's staff, and his magic flying boots. Having him in the scene means that he can act as a witness to Heracles' great deeds. It shows that the gods are interested in what heroes and other humans get up to. There's a woman standing with the king. She acts as a second witness. Her arms are out in alarm. She's perhaps supposed to be the queen. Ancient stories said that eventually she was able to escape from the king and made a new life for herself as a priestess on the island of Samos. The vase itself is an amphora. a two-handled vase used for carrying or storing things like grain, oil, or wine. It was made in Athens in the 6th century BCE. Images of Heracles were very common in Athens in that period. Some scholars think that the ruler of Athens and his family were encouraging those sorts of images because they wanted people to think that he was a bit like Heracles. The other side of the vase shows figures rushing off to war. That's a good match for the Heracles side. People going to fight had to be brave, like the hero himself. The vase is decorated in a style known as black figure. The name comes from the way that figures have been added in black slip onto the red clay background. One or two other slips have been used. White slip has been used to pick out the woman's skin. Women were always shown with paler skin on black figure vases. Areas such as the men's beards and the stripes and spots on the clothes have been picked out in what's known as deliberate red. That name comes from potters deliberately adding a very red using iron oxide rather than leaving only the red of the clay. Once the basic image is on, the details would be carefully scratched into the surface using a sharp tool. Some of the deliberate red has corrupted, creating a whitish effect, such as here on Hermes' hat and beard. The image contains an important contrast. Heracles is high and the king is low. That helps us when we're looking at it to understand that Heracles the hero is triumphing over Eurystheus the king. He's physically above him, and that conveys the meaning that he is better than him, above him in worth. Ancient Greeks would have recognised the story as soon as they saw Heracles and the boar. What would they have thought of this way of showing the end of the labour? Not only has Heracles caught the boar, he's holding it up and frightening the king with it. Perhaps they would have found that funny, or perhaps they would have seen that as a serious image. In a way, it's rather subversive, against the normal order of things. Kings are often shown to be very good at things, and that's taken as a sign that the people in charge are in charge for a good reason. Yet here it's the non-king, Heracles, who's shown to be more powerful and better at doing the kinds of things that heroes do, capturing monsters. Then again, Heracles might not be a king, but he was the son of a god. So he's important in a different way, and he can prove his worth by his actions. Still, the idea that someone could be mightier than a ruler is a powerful idea that really adds something to this myth and this image. We can see how all of this gives people the message that it's important to be good at heroic things, at running, being strong, skillful hunting, and helping people. That's what makes Heracles the star of the show, in this myth and on this vase. Perhaps these days we don't think these things are so important. Or perhaps we do. What do you think of this image? What do you think it means to be a hero?